This is part 3 of Creating a Complex Shape, Assignment 14. By the time that you finish this, you should be quite able to create your own complex logo shape using the things that you have learned here. Again, we will start where we left off last time. At this point, we have one layer. We combined the two layers that we created last time into one layer, layer 2. We now need to create one more layer, which will be the detail work at the center of the three-pointed crescent. So we will turn off layer 2 so that we can again see the trace layer. Create a new layer and name it Center. Using the ellipse tool from the shape tools, we are going to first create a white circle that will be at the very center of the design. If you look closely, you can see the highlighted handles here over the trace layer. Next, we will return to the shape tools, and this time we will choose the rectangle tool and drag open a white rectangle shape that approximates the size of one of them on the trace layer. These are the spokes around the outside of that center wheel. If I turn layer 2 back on, it makes it all a bit easier to see. Make sure that you have other layers locked and are only working on that center layer. Now, with the rectangle shape still selected and highlighted, I will go to Edit Copy and Edit Paste. This will give me an exact copy of the rectangle that I just created. I will now position it accordingly. Make a new copy of that and paste it on the other side. The four shapes composing the center are now finished. If I turn on my black background layer, you can see these four shapes isolated from the rest of the design. Turning the black background layer back off and making sure that I have all the other layers locked, I can now, with my center layer selected, highlight all the pieces that compose the center detail. Go to Object, Group, and combine them all. Then go to Edit, Copy, unlock and open layer 2, and then Edit, Paste in place. You now have all of the components that compose the design on one layer. They are, however, still separate objects. To combine them into one object, you will need, using your selection tool, highlight each and every one of the four components: the pointed crescent, the center ring, the crescent highlight rings, and the center. When you have them all lit up, it should look like this. Now go to Object, Group. This should combine all of the objects into one object, which will allow you to move them together. This is important. Until you group them as one object, you could accidentally move one component and the rest will stay where they are. Now, as you can see, we can move the whole object around and even off the artboard. We still have one important task, and that is to make an adjustment that will allow us to enlarge and reduce the size of our design without jeopardizing detail quality. Up until this point, we have been working on one artboard at one scale and everything has been fine. But if we now take the combined components and attempt to shrink them, this will happen. Which, after all the work that we put into it, is rather disconcerting. So, why is this? Well, in order to make a change to our document so that this doesn't happen when we reduce or enlarge the design, all of the stroke and fill information remains locked in, and we need to release that information. To do this, you need to go to Edit, Preferences, and all the way at the bottom of the dialog box, when you highlight Preferences, you will see General. That is where you want to go. By selecting General, this dialog box will open. At the far side of the selections, you will see Scale, Strokes, and Effects. If this is not checked, make sure that it is, and then click OK to let it apply. Now when you reduce the size of our design, and strokes and effects will remain constant with that design. As a matter of fact, I'm going to go to Edit, Copy this design, open a new document that is 3 times the size of the artboard we created the design in, This new artboard will be 18 by 18 inches. When that opens, it will look like this, and you can see that the rulers on the top and the left-hand side are indicating that it's 18-inch square document. Now I'm going to place our reduced size design, which I just copied, and place it in the middle of the artboard. And by holding down my Alt Option and Shift key, I'm going to enlarge the design to fill the artboard. As you can see, when I do this, the details and the proportions remain the same. This is why Illustrator is such a valuable program. If I want, I could continue to enlarge this document until it could fill the size of a building and still remain the proper proportions. You would, of course, have to place it onto different sections so that they could be reproduced through printing, but that's another whole discussion and one that we're not likely to get into in this class. Now I have about 4 video presentations of how to create my own personal logo to share with you, and then you should be able to begin your own logo in Illustrator.